The Blues Brothers wasn't just filmed, it was unleashed. This was 1980, back when comedies could be dangerous, when studios gambled on ideas that could crash, burn, or explode without warning. Hundreds of cars were wrecked, real police, barricades shut down streets, and the production practically lived on cigarettes and late-night diner food. Everyone remembers the music, but behind the songs, behind Aretha's Kitchen, Ray Charles's Gunshot, and Cab Calloway's Hypnotic Glide, something much heavier was happening. Relationships ignited, burned, and collapsed without anyone outside ever knowing. What survived on screen looks effortless. Two brothers on a mission from God, but buried beneath the rhythm, the gospel, and the tire smoke lies a production so wild, so fragile, so close to disaster that it's a miracle the film still exists. These are 20 facts about the Blues Brothers that reveal what really happened behind the black hats, cracked sunglasses, and the greatest car pileup ever put on. Fact number 1, buried in early drafts no one saw for decades, was a full backstory explaining why. Jake and Elwood always wore sunglasses. Aykroyd wrote that their eyes were damaged from a childhood glue factory accident. It was too dark, too strange, and too expensive to shoot. The studio tossed the idea, but the sunglasses stayed, becoming the most recognizable part of the film's identity long before movie merchandising became an industry. This was a time when a simple visual choice could define a film for a generation, and the studio didn't need a tragedy to sell the most iconic look of the era. Fact number 2, John Landis destroyed more than 100 cars to bring the Bluesmobile chase scenes to life. This was the era before fix it in post was even a concept, back when practical effects meant real metal and real danger. They bought used police cars for $400 a piece, repaired them just enough to run straight, and crashed them at speeds nobody logs anymore. The spectacle on screen was earned through real engines, real smoke, and real impacts, a level of destructive authenticity that became a shared cultural memory for everyone who saw it in theaters. Fact number 3, Aretha Franklin had never acted a day in her life. The Queen of Soul was terrified she'd ruin the scene. Her singing was flawless, but she kept forgetting lines between takes, not used to repeating dialogue. This was long before teleprompters crept onto sets to make it easy. Landis pushed, the band supported her, and her diner performance became one of the film's most legendary moments, preserving the raw energy of an era when icons had to perform, not just recite. Fact number 4, a rarely discussed casting near miss happened early when the studio wanted Richard. Prior to cameo as a street hustler, it almost happened, but scheduling conflicts and priors, rising personal struggles kept him out. His absence changed the tone of the entire second act, a reminder that back then, one missed connection could completely shift the chemistry and momentum of a film that dominated pop culture for an entire summer. Fact number 5, the Bluesmobile's insane leaps were real. Stunt drivers launched the car over 100 feet using ramps constructed by hand. The calculations weren't done on computers, they were worked out with slide rules. The suspension shattered repeatedly. Mechanics worked overnight just to keep the car in one piece for the next morning's take. This grueling, relentless work, unseen by the audience, delivered the impossible scale that made the film a communal event. Fact number 6, Ray Charles fired a live round during his music store scene. The gun wasn't meant to hold real ammo, but prop safety standards were looser in that era before modern oversight tightened everything. The wall behind the crew was sandbagged afterward. Charles stayed calm, smiled, and nailed the scene in one take. What was a terrifying near miss in the production documents was transformed into an effortless piece of screen magic. Fact number 7, John Belushi didn't act exhausted. He was exhausted, back before wellness. Coaches hovered around sets and contracts demanded limited hours. Productions relied on coffee, cigarettes, and adrenaline. Belushi's late-night lifestyle clashed brutally with 6 a.m. call times. Crew members later said they sometimes found him asleep in random houses near the filming locations, taken in by Chicago locals who recognized him and offered a couch. The city embraced him, shielding him from the very fame that was burning him out. Fact number 8, filming in Chicago meant shooting deep in industrial zones where the air tasted like metal. Before environmental controls tightened, factories ran hot through the night. spewing heat that baked the crew. Lights pushed temperatures even higher. Extras fainted. A real, human cost of the era's relentless filmmaking. No one slowed down. They just worked through the physical suffering to capture the genuine, grimy look of a city that felt alive on screen. Fact number 9. The mall chase wasn't a fake set. It was a real abandoned shopping mall rented by the production. Stores were rebuilt with period-correct signage, then destroyed in a ballet of chaos. Car after car plowed through plate glass at speeds that would shut down a modern film instantly. Before the digital age, the only way to deliver that spectacle was to rent a piece of reality and wreck it, a shared cultural moment of pure cinematic anarchy. Fact number 10. Cab Calloway insisted on performing Minnie the Moocher in full 1930s style. He wore a vintage suit, demanded a real big band, and spent hours perfecting his signature moves. Watching him glide took everyone on set back to another era before performance relied on digital enhancement. When presence was everything, his commitment anchored the film in an authentic, undeniable musical history that audiences who remember the great big band leaders recognized immediately. Fact number 11. Dan Aykroyd wrote the first script draft as a 324-page phone book monster. Studios didn't receive PDFs back then. They received paper. Executives physically carried the script, flipping page after page, horrified and fascinated by the sheer scope of the vision. It took Landis weeks to carve it into a shootable form. The length itself became a legend, a testament to the unfiltered ambition that defined filmmaking before everything was streamlined by modern project management. Fact number 12. Aretha's scene took days to shoot, not because of her acting, but because she hated lip syncing. She insisted on performing live takes, which created sound mixing nightmares. The music team fought through it, preserving an energy modern productions rarely allow when the demand for perfect sound often replaces the raw power of a live performance. That palpable, spontaneous force is what audiences who saw it in the theater remember most vividly. Fact number 13. Belushi's health was so volatile that paramedics quietly followed the crew during all major chase scenes. He was sweating through suits, running on fumes, and burning through energy reserves few people understood at the time. Landis later admitted he feared Belushi might collapse mid-take. It was a production running on a knife edge. The energy on screen fueled by a physical fragility that would be immediately halted by modern safety protocols. Fact number 14. James Brown refused to lip sync. Like Aretha, he wanted to perform live, full volume, full energy. His voice blasted through the church set, shaking rafters built in the 1940s. Extras later told interviewers they didn't act possessed. They felt possessed. The sheer power of the live performance was an authentic, visceral experience that could never be replicated by studio-recorded tracks, a hallmark of an era where musical legends demanded nothing less than everything. Fact number 15. Carrie Fisher's mysterious character wasn't just acting intense. She and Dan Aykroyd were in a real relationship during production. Their chemistry off-screen fed the fire on screen. The crew joked that her scenes were the only ones where Belushi behaved himself because he respected her more than anyone. It was a passionate affair unfolding privately on a closed set long before entertainment news hunted every personal detail, shaping the film's intimate tension without the audience ever knowing the real cost. Fact number 16. A secret relationship bloomed quietly behind the set walls involving one of the band members. He began seeing a production assistant who later admitted she'd fallen for him during late-night rehearsals. It never made tabloids. This was long before social media and 24/7 news cycles, but the emotional tension subtly shaped the band's on-screen chemistry. It was a private orbit of attraction and connection that only those who were there could truly witness, a small, hidden piece of the film's soulful magic. Fact number 17. One stunt nearly killed a driver. The Bluesmobile's high-speed run through downtown Chicago hit a crosswind that pushed the car inches from crashing into a concrete pillar. This wasn't green screen. This was steel, rubber, and a driver holding onto life and velocity in a way that modern insurance companies would never permit. The shot stayed in the movie. It is a permanent, heart-stopping reminder of the unfiltered risk they took to deliver spectacle that became legendary. Fact number 18. Belushi's on-set disappearance became legend. Late one night, he vanished during a break. Crew panicked, Landis searched. Finally, a homeowner near the set said, "Oh yeah, Belushi's in my house." He raided my fridge. The city embraced him like family, shielding him during some of his darkest moments. This was a time when a major star could simply walk off a set and be taken in by a local family before fame became a cage monitored by handlers and security. Fact number 19. On the final night shoot, tensions erupted. Aykroyd and Belushi clashed over pacing, line delivery, and exhaustion. Belushi stormed off. Aykroyd followed. They argued for nearly an hour outside an old Chicago warehouse. When they finally emerged, they hugged silently. The next take was the one used in the film. The raw, intense brotherhood audience saw was born out of a real, exhausting conflict that only deepened their authentic connection. Fact number 20. The production ripped apart one more relationship no one talks about. A musician who joined the film hoping for a career boost found his marriage falling apart as he spent long nights rehearsing, recording, and touring with the team. He later said the film gave him fame but took something he could never rebuild. That heartbreak never showed on screen. But listen closely to the soundtrack's rawness and you can still hear the cost of the sacrifice they made to create the most visceral, unforgettable musical film of the era. In the end, the Blues Brothers became more than a comedy, more than a musical, more than a wrecking yard ballet of cars and chaos. It became a snapshot of a time when films weren't built, they were survived. Back when stunts meant danger, music meant sweat, and cities opened their doors to productions that lived on instinct instead of analytics. People packed into theaters in summer 1980, long before streaming rewired how culture moved. The film didn't just entertain, it took control of the moment, filling giant auditoriums with laughter, engines, gospel, and the unmistakable echo of a world that felt united for 2 hours. Watching it now feels like opening a time capsule to an era when everything was louder, riskier, and more alive. And for those who first saw Jake and Elwood step into the light in those old theaters when popcorn cost a couple dollars and the projector clattered behind you, the memory still hits like a chord from a blues band warming up, a reminder that some madness only happens once and it